A very good afternoon. It's a pleasure to meet you all and welcome you all to the SAARC Special Lecture Series. This is Dr. Beena Gandhi Deori, Deputy Director Research, SAARC Cultural Centre, Sri Lanka. The main objective of the SAARC Special Lecture Series is to facilitate cultural dialogue and understanding among the SAARC member states. This cultural diplomacy plays a significant role in strengthening regional cooperation and fostering a sense of unity among the SAARC member states. This afternoon, we have with us Ms. Sulochana Dissanayake, who is going to speak on puppetry and its relevance in 21st century South Asia. Before we proceed with the interesting lecture, I invite the Director of SAARC Cultural Centre to address. Over to you, madam.
Good afternoon. Ms. Sulochana Dissanayake, distinguished guest, a very warm welcome to this special SAARC lecture hosted by the SAARC Cultural Centre. It is a pleasure to have you all join us today for this engaging and insightful discussion on a topic that is both timely and deeply significant for our region. Is puppetry relevant in the 21st century South Asia? In our modern world, the art forms that have shaped our cultures over centuries often find themselves facing questions about their continued relevance. Puppetry, one of the most ancient forms of storytelling, continues to be an extraordinary medium of cultural expression, communication, and education. South Asia, with its rich and diverse traditions, has a deep-rooted history in puppetry, from shadow puppets in Sri Lanka and India to string puppets in Bangladesh and Nepal. In a time dominated by rapid technological advancements, the question arises, is puppetry still relevant today? This is a question that our distinguished speaker, Ms. Sulochana Dissanayake, will explore today. Ms. Dissanayak is the founder and artistic director of Power of Play, an organization she founded in 2011 with the vision to innovate the use of puppets, theatre, and storytelling for education and training. We are fortunate to have her with us today to share her insights, experiences, and perspectives on how puppetry can continue to thrive in our ever-changing world. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Dissanayak for generously sharing her expertise with us. We are excited to hear your thoughts and we look forward to learning from your journey and the incredible work you have done in keeping this important art from alive and evolving. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to each one of you for taking the time to join us for this lecture. Your participation today is a testament to the importance of preserving and promoting our cultural heritage, and we encourage all of you to actively engage in this discussion. Let us ask questions, share ideas, and explore how we as a community can ensure that puppetry remains a relevant and powerful tool for storytelling, education, and social change in South Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. So as madam has already mentioned, this afternoon we have Sulochana with us. Ms. Sulochana is the founder of Power of Play, which was founded in 2011 with the aim to communicate and educate people through the medium of puppets. So now I invite Ms. Sulochana to give a brief introduction about herself and her work and to proceed with the presentation. I also have a request to all the online participants to please mute yourself, and if you have any questions in the meantime, you can always write your questions in the chat box down below. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ms. Sulochana.
Are we on, Salo? Hello? Are we on? Oh my goodness! I think I can see Veena. Hi, Veena. Oh,
Hi,
I think I can see Anna and Tata too. Hi. You guys should switch off your camera if you're not on camera clothes, you know? Hi, Sohani. Okay, Susie, I think we have to start the lecture. Oh my gosh, I miss you guys so much. This makes me want to run back to Colombo. Okay, all right. Can you remember what we discussed that you're going to watch from the other room? I can see my tongue. Okay, Susie, we are going to put you to the other room because I have to start the lecture now, okay? All right. Okay, guys, so keep your cameras and mics muted so we don't stress out the computer, okay? Bye. Hi, everybody. That was the very energetic Susie, who was built by a wonderful puppet maker in Sri Lanka named Seema Omar. I hope she's watching later on now. I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who is joining us on a busy Friday afternoon from wherever in the world you are. I'm Sulochana Dissanayake, and thank you so much to Dr. Beena, the director of the SAARC Cultural Centre, for having me on today. So, let's take a look at what we are looking at today. The power of puppets, how puppetry withstood time to become one of the most magical tools of communication in South Asia. As Dr. Beena mentioned, I am the founder and artistic director of Power of Play Private Limited. And from the time I was 3 years old, I couldn't stop telling stories. And very luckily, I was blessed with progressive parents who encouraged me to follow my passions. So I ended up studying in Sri Lanka right up to my A-levels and then winning a scholarship to go to Bates College, USA, where I chose to double major in theater and economics because I was always keen on setting up my passion as my career. And nobody encourages their child to grow up and be an artist anywhere in the world. And I think lesser people will encourage their children to become puppeteers. I'm willing to bet on that, especially in South Asia. And one of my father's favorite party jokes are still, I sent my daughter to the US to become an economist, and she returned home a puppeteer. So, but he's still one of the biggest fans of my work. So I returned to Sri Lanka after doing a Watson Fellowship granted by the IBM Foundation in USA, where that granted me the funding to travel to South Africa and Indonesia, which is where I truly discovered the magic of puppetry. And I returned to Sri Lanka and have been using puppets since 2010 for advocacy, education, and awareness in Sri Lanka. So I'm much more of an interactive personality. I'm not an academic, if you haven't guessed already. I'm a practitioner of puppets, and I would call myself a theater creator. So I would love this to be a little bit interactive. I'm just going to ask you guys, whoever's brave enough, to type a few answers into the chat as we go. When you think or hear the word puppets, and if I ask you what kind of puppets exist in the world, or what kind of puppets have you been lucky to experience in your life, could you name a few puppets you've come across? Type it into the chat. Yeah, go ahead. You can start typing in your answers. What kind of puppets have you seen in the world? String puppets, shadow puppets, perfect. Any other guesses? Finger puppets, very good. Anyone have seen larger than life puppets? What do we call them? Yeah, very good. You guys are getting all the answers right. Excellent. So let's look. Absolutely. String puppets and marionettes are the most common traditional forms of puppetry in South Asia. So if you talk about Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, wherever you go, you are very likely to find marionette puppets. In Sinhalese, we call them Nool Rukada. Nool means string and Rukada means puppet. And in Sri Lanka, the very famous region for that is Ambalangoda. So if you're talking of Indonesia, India, you'll find them in Rajasthan, and similarly neighboring countries as well. Finger puppets, very, very famous in classrooms or any kind of community that has limited resources. Hand glove puppets. If you are fans of Sesame Street, like I was growing up, we also call these puppets Muppets. Then you have shadow puppets in India, and which traveled all the way to Indonesia as well. Then you have rod puppets that you can see in these pictures, also very famous across the region. Body puppets are very commonly seen at like promotions and things, and then you have giant puppets. And down there is featured our little girl giant from Sri Lanka. And then, of course, like people who cross across borders and then mix within communities, puppets are also mixed. So wherever people traveled, puppetry exchanged hands. Coming from the world to our neighbors, our SAARC friends, it delights me that majority of these puppets that we mentioned previously are alive and well in the South Asian region. So if you look at string puppets, like I said, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, rod puppets from Bangladesh, the Dhaka Puppet Theatre is doing some great advocacy work. Giant puppets from Nepal and Pakistan, Rafi Pia Theatre, as well as Sri Lanka, my own company, Power of Play. And these Nepal giant puppets remind me of the traditional giant puppets that are participating in religious parades in Sri Lanka. We call them Mahababa. And then the Sesame Street Muppets from Pakistan and Afghanistan, and shadow and string puppets from India. I would like to take a moment to pay tribute to the oldest living traditional puppeteer of Sri Lanka, Maestro Premin Ganbari, and his great-great-great-great-grandfather performed to Prince of Wales when he visited Sri Lanka in the 1800s. And it is said that marked the beginning of puppetry being recognized as a formal, as a heritage art form in Sri Lanka. And for many generations, his family has been practitioners of string puppets, and they are still performing in all over Sri Lanka, but they reside in Ambalangoda. Now I'd like to come to the question, why puppets? If you think about puppetry in its most original form, it's about bringing inanimate objects to life. For me, as a theatre director and a community advocate, the power of puppets is that puppets can say things that humans can't. And this is very interesting because when it comes to socially critical issues like gender, like communal harmony, coexisting, race, identity, health, all those issues that we don't want to directly look at, we'd like to sweep it under the carpet. The puppets have a very playful way of bringing it out to the spotlight. They're not real, so you can't get angry at a puppet. And history proves that even in the most brutal regimes, the puppeteers have survived. And it's always been a form of resistance a form of expression, a form of unity, and a form of celebration. And right in the center picture is one of my favorite pictures of taking one of my rod puppets that were developed in Indonesia and based on a Sri Lankan folktale character, Mahadana Mutta's Puak Badilla's wife, Puak Badilli, where I traveled with her up and down the streets during the civil uprising of Sri Lanka in 2022, I believe, which is when we faced one of the biggest economic and political collapses of Sri Lanka. And it was amazing because that was a time where I would say hundreds, if not thousands, of humans gathered on the street to demand for good governance and financial accountability in Sri Lanka. And this puppet is maybe like less than 2 feet tall. And each time I took her out to the streets, the people would part like the Red Sea parted for Moses. And everyone would be looking at this tiny wooden doll in my hand. So once again, coming back to the point, when puppets come alive, people's defenses drop because they are fascinated by the art form. Like many of you would have experienced when Susie popped onto the screen, it fascinates you, it delights you, it makes you laugh, your defenses drop, and as we say in theater, your listening ears are activated, where you listen to understand versus listening to judge or condemn or prove your point or get defensive. So this is hugely useful when you are addressing socially critical issues which are taboo, which are sensitive, which gets people's hair up at the mention of that issue. It's very, very, very smart to approach it in the form of puppetry, where people are first fascinated and entertained, and then they become collaborative with you. So going on to talking about these socially critical issues, and I was doing a little bit of research for this lecture, and I had come across this before, but I was reminded about it again, where Sesame Street in Afghanistan introduced a female character, Zari, who was introduced to inspire the female viewers of the show. And many of us may be familiar with the political and religious environment in Afghanistan, where under the extremely oppressive regime of Taliban, girls were prohibited from going to school. And if any of you are Malala fans, you may have read her beautiful children's book, The Magic Pencil of Malala, that was gifted to me by a family friend and was one of my children's and my favorite bedtime stories, where even in such a brutal and oppressive regime, hope is possible in the form of a female character, Zari, and recently in 2017, they introduced her brother, Zirak, to model behaviors that are respectful towards women. So the article that I have shared here is from a British newspaper that reported that these puppets were introduced to demonstrate how being respectful to women should be just a part of everybody's daily life. So this once again goes back to my point that even in the most oppressive and brutal regimes, puppets have become the tool for progress. So that reminded me of what we did in Sri Lanka back in 2018 and 2019. I want to backpedal a little because this story actually begins in 2009 in South Africa, where I was on my Watson Fellowship, where I had the privilege of attending the National Arts Festival of Grahamstown in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. And I still remember to this date taking a turn in this tiny town of Grahamstown and seeing 7 or 8 giants lumber by. And I felt like Alice in Wonderland. I stopped, everybody else had stopped, the vehicles had stopped, and even the birds had stopped. You could hear nothing. And you have to understand, this is the second largest arts festival of the world, where during the arts festival, every street in Grahamstown becomes chock-a-block. Like imagine Bombay streets, right? Imagine the noise level that you'd hear in Bombay. The same thing, South African version. So for that to get quietened down is no easy feat. And the director in me immediately thought, no matter what I do, I need to take one of these giants back to Colombo. Easier said than done. These giants were created by Le Grand Person in south of France. And no matter how many embassy doors I knocked in back in Sri Lanka, nobody could find the funding to bring them down to Colombo. But I do think they've toured to India once or twice. And then I didn't give up, and YouTube came to my rescue, where I saw a Swedish puppeteer creating a model of a giant puppet that looked very similar to the French models. And I immediately reached out to him, and he confirmed that he was trained by Le Grand Person at a workshop they did in South America in Chile. And of course, I said, can you come and teach us how to make this giant? And he said, absolutely. And we couldn't even find funding to bring him down. So for 5 years, we wrote back and forth, a little bit more than 5 years. And in 2017, he said he's amassed enough of his personal funding after DJing in the summers in Sweden to come to Sri Lanka on a holiday with his family. And he's willing to teach us how to build this puppet for free. And of course, I said yes. And then I thought, oh my goodness, building a giant takes a village. How are we going to do it? I didn't have a village, you know. And luckily at that time, I was working with Dilma's MJF Foundation, Dilma T's MJF Foundation in Moratuwa. And they came on board, and they were willing to be the village that we could build this giant in. And throughout a 3-week process in 2018, about 100 youth, children, and staff of the Merrill J. Fernando Foundation gathered to build this giant girl. And it had to be a girl because even though things are not as bad as Afghanistan in Sri Lanka, in my personal opinion, there are still a lot of barriers that affect girls and women in Sri Lanka. So when the Swedish puppeteer Felix asked me, who's the character we are building? I still remember at that time there was a lot of outcry over the lack of female representation in the Sri Lankan parliament. And I think the provincial elections or something was coming up, and female candidates were facing intimidation. And I thought to myself, it has to be a girl, a little girl, because we have to show everyone that any girl can be a giant if raised to be so. So with that philosophy in mind, we created Sama, the little girl giant, and found funding through the British Council's Women and Girls Voices program, and toured her to schools in 2018 and 19 with an entire show called Why Sama. And in the show, the little Sama that you can see on the right questions daily idioms that she hears. And if you grew up in South Asia, chances are you would have heard a lot of idioms in your life. Good girls should, or good boys should, or good girls shouldn't, or good boys shouldn't. So I'm going to take a small break here because, like I said, I love interactive programs and I want you just to humor me. Again, no offense taken or given. Just type in the most ridiculous idiom you were told growing up that related to your gender. So, wherever you grew up, you type good girls should. What were you told? Or good boys should. Or good girls shouldn't, or good boys shouldn't. Can you complete that sentence for me in the chat? I'm going to kickstart this with my favorite, and this is one in Sri Lanka. Oh, good girls talk softly. Good girls should help around the house. Boys don't need to. Oh boy. Okay. And thank you, Sani. Good girls shouldn't laugh loudly. Oh boy. I'm glad I never tried to be good in my life. And I always got into trouble in school for having the loudest belly laugh. And my favorite in Sri Lanka, I'm going to say it in Sinhala and I'll translate it. හොඳ ගෑනු ළමයි පස්ස පැත්තට ඉර පායනකන් නිදා ගන්න හොඳ නෑ. Good girls should not sleep till the sun shines on their bum. I hated this because even in university I couldn't get up on this side of noon. Yeah. And the only reason I get up before noon now is because I have children to send to school. Anything else? What about good boys should? The men can type also. I see a lot of women answering. What did you hear? And I'm going to jump in with this one here to kick us off. In Sri Lanka, we tell boys all the time if they show any weakness or tears or sadness, if they express sadness, we say, thank you. Yes. We say, "Gäniek wage adan depa." Don't cry like a woman. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we wonder why so many men, so that the suicide rate for men is so high in our countries. All right. So, yeah, this is very, very serious stuff you guys are typing in. Thank you for generously participating. So, getting back to Waisama, we questioned these idioms in the play, and it ended with Sama actually making friends with her fear, which allowed her to grow to be this giant character, and the entire audience was led outside to meet Sama the giant. So coming from that, before that, I want to actually show you a quick clip from Waisama the show. Righto. Great. So that was Waisama. And I want to talk about how puppetry is also used for various advocacy topics. And this caught my eye as a cross-cultural collaboration between a UK puppet company and a puppet company in India, which it just very recently concluded in New Delhi as part of the KNMA Theatre Festival and the Katkata Puppet Art Trust. The UK company who built giant puppets that are illuminated collaborated with the Katkata Puppet Art Trust to create giant insects, which pulled together artists and creators from all parts of India, I think, and created this beautiful puppet parade. So let's take a look at that. So this is the workshop process that they went through.
Being here and seeing different shows, seeing the traditional arts, and also just traveling and getting the sounds and colors and tastes of India has been really inspiring to me. My name is Andrew Kim, and I come from West Yorkshire, England. I'm a puppeteer.
Giant puppetry, which is what Andrew's bringing on board, is not very common in India. So something unique is coming in. Immediately it spreads out to different parts of the country. And very importantly, this group of people wouldn't have met otherwise. So this is a little network which has begun to form.
It's been a really wonderful experience. I'm so grateful for the partner organizations who've brought me here, the British Council and the KNMA, and of course Katkata Arts. I'm also learning by all the people that have brought their skills and their experience into the room.
And let's take a quick look at the parade. Yeah. So this delighted me because the next part of my presentation is about how puppets inspire cross-cultural collaborations like most art forms do. But it's so delightful when puppeteers get together across countries, across boundaries, across borders to collaborate. And this was what struck me the most in my time in Indonesia, because I was told that Indonesia is one of the largest Muslim archipelagos in the world. So I arrived there and was surprised to find that majority of their shadow puppets still performed Rama and Sita or stories from the Mahabharata. And I was like, wait, isn't that from India? It is from India. And from Indonesia, first being influenced by Buddhism and then Hinduism, where these stories traveled across the region and arrived in Indonesia and was performed across the courts, across the communities, as shadow puppetry shows, and which became so popular. And these are like all-night performances, very similar to the Balitoil or Shanti Karma cultures of Sri Lanka, where you'd start the performance at 9 p.m. and it will finish at 3 a.m. And these puppet shows became so popular, people wanted to watch puppets during daytime as well. So from Wayang Kulit, which is the shadow puppets, Wayang Golek, the 3D rod puppets, wooden rod puppets were born. And those are the puppets you can see at the bottom picture. And when Islam arrived, my teachers told me in Indonesia that even though traditionally puppetry is considered haram, because you can't represent human form in another way, they realized that you can't really shut this down because it's too popular. So the route they took was to stylize the puppets. So if you compare the top picture with the bottom picture, the shadow puppets don't really look human because their faces are so stylized and their bodies are so stylized. But if you look at the bottom picture, the rod puppet has a lot more human-like features. And that also relates to the court entertainment versus the folk entertainment, where shadow puppetry was seen more as a court entertainment and rod puppetry was seen more as a folk entertainment. So then I was also delighted to discover that these stories of Rama and Sita from the Ramayana or Mahabharata, the Pandava Kaurava stories, were not just performed as traditional tales, but the Indonesians had introduced their own characters into these stories that reflect the changing Indonesian community through the generations. So you'll have clowns, you'll have politicians, you'll have celebrities, you'll have villagers popping in between these grand battles that the Pandava brothers are, having. And they'll comment on the current news, or they'll comment on something a celebrity did last month, or some delightful humor will come in. And that proved to me the relevance of these stories, where they were also touching on really crucial topics like global climate change or gender issues or racial harmony through these traditional stories. And when I told, because I was so fascinated by the rod puppet form, I also wanted to bring that back to Sri Lanka. And when I told my guru, my West Javanese guru, that I wanted to take the rod puppets back, he asked me, well, do your people know Rama and Sita? And in Sri Lanka, yes, we do definitely know Rama and Sita, but it's not part of our everyday story lingo. Then he told me, then don't take Rama and Sita if it's not extremely popular, because you have to take something that everybody knows. And I thought to myself, what's the story every child, adult, and elderly person knows in Sri Lanka? Mahadana Mutta. So if you're not Sri Lankan, Mahadana Mutta is a story about a wise old guru who gives terrible advice, and it's actually a political satire on blind faith. So we decided to reinvent the traditional folktale characters and include men and women from different ethnic backgrounds and races and languages and economic and social classes, and bring them to light in Colombo and all over Sri Lanka. And that became such a hit wherever we toured, whether it was a grassroots community in the Northeast, to the South, to the blue chip companies of Colombo. The puppets won everybody's hearts. So I just wanted to touch upon the cross-cultural collaboration that puppets inspire people to have. Puppets are not just great in live form, but even the king featured puppets in his film Paheli. You may have seen this one, or there are so many movies with puppetry in them. So I've said from, the Bollywood cinema to chocolate advertisements, puppets have proven their mettle. And this is what's great about puppets. I always tell people, you have to think of puppets like water. They are able to take the shape of the vessel you need them to take. So whether your purpose is communication, education, marketing, awareness, wherever you want to dynamically present your message, puppetry becomes a magical tool. You could think a lot of the examples I showed you were very time consuming and resource consuming. You need big budgets for that kind of puppets. But I want to remind you that all puppets are powerful. From the 14-foot giant girl to the tiny Erica knot doll that you can create from the Erica nuts in your garden, all puppets are powerful. They all have the capability to fascinate, which is why puppetry becomes such a fantastic medium for South Asian countries, which are always short of funding and resources with so many barriers. We are, living proof that you can create commercial success out of puppetry, because that's exactly what we've been doing in Sri Lanka over the past 14 years. And when you look at other regional puppet theaters in the region, like Rafi Pier or Dhaka or Katkata, you can always see whatever work they do has such fantastic impact wherever they go. So all puppets are powerful. This is why puppetry becomes such a common tool for educators to rely on, because the simplest puppets can bring any classroom to life. You may have experienced puppets in your childhood, in your classrooms, or maybe now your children are experiencing them. I used this picture, which was the paper puppets I created during lockdown in COVID in Sri Lanka, where all of us collectively lost our sanity because we had to be with our children 24/7. And these puppets were so simple to create. So I created my family members in these puppet forms, and we could play this wonderful game where we could exchange each other's characters and hear what we actually sound like from our children's perspective. So I would give my puppet to my son, and I would take his puppet. And it was so cathartic because I could throw any tantrum I wanted, and he had to console me and explain to me why bedtime was important. One of the highlights of lockdown for me, folks. So just like that, puppetry enables you to play, playfully activate respectful homes, playfully balance the hierarchy of power in your workplace or in your classroom, where children or anyone who's in a subordinate role is playfully allowed to experience that power for a little while. And you can also hear the other person's perspective. And you can also think, do I really sound like that? And it gives you wonderful space for self-reflection. So we use puppetry a lot for mental health activations and emotional intelligence building workshops and resilience. And like I said, it doesn't have to be costly. You can create puppets from whatever materials you have at hand. So once again, very, very, very important for trauma-informed work that needs to happen in our region, because we all know every month, every week, somewhere in our region, somebody is experiencing trauma. Yeah. So now I want to do a quick little exercise. If anyone wants to play along with me, I want you to look around your table and pick up two contrasting objects. Yeah. And they can contrast in size or color or weight, whatever. Yeah. Because I want to show you that you don't have to have finished puppets to be a puppeteer. You can take everyday objects to life and bring them to life. Yeah. So now would be the time for you to turn on your cameras and show me what are the objects you've selected. I'm going to select.
Sulochana, can I play too?
Yeah. You don't need my permission, Dr. Veena. Anyone can play.
Okay.
So these are the objects that, of course, don't judge me. This is my husband's table I'm working from. So
I have this.
I'm gonna. What do you have?
I have a
A
stapler
stapler
and a
and a
glue.
glue bottle.
And,
I
and then
love
my
it.
colleague.
Super.
Uh,
Yes. Apsara, you have. Can we
Yes,
pin
I have a
Apsara?
very old
The
Nokia
Apsara.
phone and a glass.
Beautiful. And Sohani, I can see you holding a table mat. And let's pin Sohani. And a little. You can unmute yourself, Sohani.
I have
Okay.
a candle, a tea light candle, and a table mat.
A tea light candle and a table mat. Okay, super. Oh, this is so great. And Mr. Zulkarnain, you can unmute yourself. Sohani, you can put yourself back on mute, love.
Okay, I have a
Thank you.
network cable, so I am thinking that network, you know, network cable.
You have twins. That's all right. We'll
Yes,
work with twins. Good.
yes.
Okay, so I just want you to take a moment to look at your object and maybe like feel the weight of your object. And think to yourself, what kind of voice would these objects have? What kind of conversation? If a headset was to meet a cream bottle, what would they say to each other? What are their voices like? Yeah? And it can be something super simple, right? I want you to take a moment. Think of headset says one sentence, cream bottle response. Headset says a second sentence, response. Third sentence, response. Both exit, right? So really simple. Don't overthink it. It's just for fun. Who's ready?
Sohani can go ahead. Sohani, you.
Okay, all right.
Let's
I'll
pin
go.
Sohani, and you can unpin me because I want everyone to see just Sohani. You can unpin me. 1 second, Sohani. I want you to have the full stage.
Okay, I have no idea where I'm
Perfect.
going
Let's
with
go.
this, but okay. So I'm so useful. Oh, really? But I bring people light. Yeah, but I make sure that there aren't any stains on the tables. Oh, my function is so much better than yours. I bring light and joy and beauty to the world.
Nice, nice.
Oh, wow. How brave is that? Big round of applause for Sohani, guys.
Excellent.
Fantastic. And that's just that. It's just having playful energy to just go with your gut. That was not easy to do, and you did it so well. Thank you, Sohani. All right. Mr. Zulkarnain, are we ready for the twins?
Yes.
Let's pin him. Wonderful. Take it
Okay.
away.
Okay. Yeah, actually, without you, I am nothing. So, if you are not connected, then I cannot work. Like, we need to work together. Otherwise, there will be no work.
Brought to you by the public service of every relationship you've ever had, ladies and gentlemen. Big round of applause for Mr. Zulkarnain. That's wonderful. Apsara, you got something for us? Let's pin Apsara.
Oh yeah, so I have this very old Nokia phone with me and this glass. Let me think. You look so old. Look at you. Well, I may look old, but I'm so versatile. And I have a torch at my back. And then I can call hundreds of people, unlike you, who just sits on the table the whole day. And you would only serve water, but whereas I can call so many people and I can dance on the floor, unlike you. If you try to dance on the floor, you will break into 1,000 pieces. That's it.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Apsara. Oh my goodness. You guys all have careers as puppeteers, guys. Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Dr. Beena, you want to try?
And that's my goal, to be work with you.
Anyway, I have
Okay, let's pin Dr. Beena.
I have these two things with me. One is a stapler, fat stapler, and a very slim glue. And like I can staple and I can glue. Who is the more powerful one? And it's like, yeah, it's okay. Let's not enter into any kind of competition and be friends. Thank you. That's my time.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. And that's just it. Yeah. You don't have to have a lot of resources to become a puppeteer. Any object is valid that you have lying around. And there's so much resources now on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok on how to make super simple puppets. And it just, I mean, you can see from the delight in the face of the performers how that experience transforms not just the audience, but the puppeteer as well. If I may take a few more minutes, Sohani, are you able to tell us what that experience felt like for you, apart from frightening, probably?
Yeah, it definitely made me think about like I was able to think of life from like another perspective, and I think that even these are just objects that um, uh, in my piece, I guess it was just like the objects spoke about its function, because I was just improvising. I didn't, but I was still able to go and embody this object and have two perspectives from their perspective. Yeah, I think that was quite
Absolutely.
interesting and curious, and yeah, I thought it was fun also.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that's exactly it. Puppets allow different perspectives, and that's why they're so powerful in bringing communities together. It allows you to freely hear the other side of the story or walk in someone else's shoes. And if you look at little Amal's walk across Europe a few years ago, the South African puppetry company created a giant puppet of a Syrian refugee girl called Little Amal. And I just had a picture of her on my presentation. Let me just go back to that because she's just so stunning. And this one. There we go. The first one on the left. And she traveled across so many countries in Europe on foot, and with the simple question, how would you receive Amal in your city? And this really spotlighted the refugee crisis. It was a performance called The Walk, and if you guys have time, just look at the YouTube video of the highlights. It makes me cry every time I watch it. So puppets can be really, really, really powerful tools in providing you a fresh perspective onto really critically important issues. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody for playing along. We are almost at time to finish the lecture and open the Q&A. But if you are running off, I want you to remember where to find us afterwards, and get in touch with us if you want to collaborate in Sri Lanka or in the region. And I have to mention that I have migrated to Adelaide, South Australia. So if anyone's open for collaborations in Australia, do look us up on our socials. So you can scan this, which will take you directly to our website. And my team is live and well in Colombo, and we have a lot of beautiful Christmas programs lined up. So do make sure you come for a show. Great. Now I'd like you to start asking your questions. It could be a question, it could be a reflection, it could be a feeling. Anything you want, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask directly or type it into the chat. And again, I want you to remember that I'm not an academic, so I may not have answers to all your questions, but it's so important to ask the questions anyway. Anybody has questions? Thanks, Sohani. Thank you so much for joining.
So it's not a
Anybody has a question?
It's not a question, but I mean, it's like a compliment. It was very wonderful session and very interactive session. Actually, we have one program in 2025 that SAARC promoting the puppetry art, actually to enhance the social awareness. It will be in hybrid mode. 2024.
Oh.
I think that is more relevant with your work. So it is
fantastic.
an opportunity for us.
When is it happening?
We didn't fix the date, but we'll fix the calendar and let you know. That is more relevant to your activities, like what you have presented. Actually, we wanted to enhance the social awareness through the puppetry. That was the objective of our program. So we have planned to invite and connect the people who are actually in action, like you, who are doing something to make puppetry in action, like doing different programs.
Fantastic. So there's a lot of us doing a lot of things for puppetry in Sri Lanka and in the region. So I'd be happy to connect with you on that, Mr. Zulkarnain.
Yes, I need to introduce myself also, because I am deputy director program. I am deputy director program of SAARC Cultural Centre. So that is very much related with your work. Like you are also involved in programs. So maybe we can look forward to work together for the future program on promoting puppetry art.
Absolutely.
The social awareness of South Asia. So hope
absolutely.
To work with
and I've just put my website and email address down. If anyone wants to connect afterwards, please make a note of that. Thank you so much, Mr. Zulkarnain. I look forward to connecting with you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone has any other questions about what I discussed, or maybe a personal experience with puppetry? I just want to ask you guys, do you think puppetry is still relevant in South Asia?
Hello, Sulochana is more of a I'm just curious to know that when you do you also make these puppets? Because sometimes you use a puppet for a long time and they need to change, their dress or something. So you do it by yourself, or you make it by yourself, or
No, no, she doesn't make us. We are made by Auntie Seema.
okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
So these
The voice
these
behind was
puppets,
you.
Yes.
Wow.
No, it's me.
Oh.
Ah. No, this is a really, really.
Calling me a puppet.
you are a puppet.
Or a
No,
muppet.
I'm not. Yeah, that's right. I'm a muppet. Hi, Bina.
Hey.
So these puppets, we are very blessed. These puppets are made for us by Boutique Foundation, an organization that empowers caregivers of differently abled children and adults to earn income from their home setup by creating cloth-based products, and puppets are one thing that they create. And their founder is Seema Omar, and she's the one who creates all these beautiful puppets for us. Barfi, you need to go now
Why?
because I have important things to say.
Okay. I look nice.
Okay, good, Barfi. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Sulochana, as you have shown,
So,
this, especially in the case of South Asia, puppetry is still very vibrant, and culture. It's a
absolutely.
significant cultural practice, which and it's not just for entertainment. It's beyond that. Puppetry is deeply embedded in the cultural fabric of South Asia. It reflects, as you have already mentioned, it reflects local traditions, folklores. Like you have mentioned about how like shadow puppets in Indonesia, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So it helps to preserve these stories for future generations,
Absolutely.
folklores,
The
and
legacy.
in the legacy in the 21st century, I think it is increasingly recognized for its contribution to cultural identity, social commentary, education,
Absolutely.
and also community engagement. As you have mentioned, that it serves as a very powerful tool or medium for social commentary, especially in contemporary South Asian society. It provides a platform for addressing very important social issues like gender equality, environmental conservation, and also sometimes, as you said, about like politics also, if there is something happening, so you
Absolutely.
cannot directly address it, so
Absolutely.
it
And
is a
I
medium
want
of
to
puppet.
also touch upon the fact that our last project in Sri Lanka for you was for USAID, where we were commissioned to increase economic literacy of youth because the massive economic crisis happened. And very quickly we realized that unless you had studied economics in school for your A levels, the average Sri Lankan has zero economic literacy. And that was one of the primary reasons that the governance was allowed to get so corrupted because citizens didn't know how to hold their elected leaders accountable for their votes. So we created a 3.5-hour spectacle with puppets and performing arts to teach the basic economic principles of how income and expenses worked, how debt impacts our daily life, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, there is no limit to what puppets can do.
Yeah, as you have said,
And
it
it's
can be
all boils down. Yeah,
it can be used as a satire, as a like humor to critique the social
yes,
norms
yes.
and government policies, making complex issues accessible to wider audience. So, in
100%,
that
Dr.
way,
Bina.
I think the
And that
relevance of
accessibility,
exactly.
sorry, I'm interrupting you because I'm so excited because you're hitting the nail on the head. That's what makes puppets fly in every audience, because we make complex things so simple and accessible to everyday public.
Yeah. So, yeah, in that case, it will never be out of relevance or outdated.
Absolutely. But I believe so. And I have experienced that in my life, that any industry, any goal, any budget, any client, the puppets have something for you.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Sulochana.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Session with us. And this was the last special lecture of this year, hosted by SAARC Cultural Centre, and we are so glad and we are so happy that we have you as the speaker of the last SAARC special lecture. So on behalf of SAARC Cultural Centre, I thank you, and I also thank all the online participants for your support. Please visit the SAARC website, SAARC Cultural Centre website, and also like the Facebook page for the regular updates. Thank you very much.
Okay,
thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Thank you so much, and stay in touch.
Okay, thank you, Sulochana.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you, Sulochana. It's very interesting lecture as well as the discussion. Thank you so much.
Most welcome, and I look forward to future collaborations. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, madam.